Welcome back to the world with Randall Williams. And I told y'all that Invincible season three would be the one to take it to the next level. The season finale encapsulated that. The episode 8 was a banger, an incredible season finale. And I think season three was the best episode yet. I'll give a quick recap as to what happened in the events, the differences between the show and the comic, some thoughts and analysis, and then of course what we can look forward to. But as the episode 8 starts, I think it starts out promising for the first 3 minutes or so when Mark is fighting Conquest and he starts punching him to the sky. But the minute that Conquest blows that blood bubble and shapes it into a heart, everything changes. Everything changes for literally like a 20-minute stretch, which is almost half the episode. That moment with the blood bubble does not happen in the comics. Does not happen in the comics, but I think Rob Kirkman has a interesting way of adding details to this show that weren't in the comics that everybody's perfectly fine with because it's just fun. It's authentic to the comic and it's not doing too much. Um, but yeah, he's immediately once they get to space and he blows that blood bubble, Conquest flips a switch and just starts beating the living hell out of Mark. And I think there's that scene where you have Oliver in the living room with with his stepmom Debbie, and they're just having a conversation. And Oliver's like, "Look, I'm gonna try to go help," and um, and Debbie is like, she can't stop him, and she knows that there's a possibility that Oliver could help Mark survive. So he goes out there, and just to see Oliver try to catch them as they're fighting over cities. I was texting I was texting one of my friends today. He made the point of shout out Tonio Shelton. Um excuse me, Tonio Valentino. And he made the point of like, why is anybody at the beach? Why are you not somewhere on a farm or somewhere else? Because we're fresh off the Invincible War. This thing just happened less than 3 days ago. Like the Invincible War was 3 days ago. Conquest shows up the day after, and people are back performing or back at the beach as if nothing happened. And I think that's I try to live through the minds of the civilians in this world where like cities are just getting decimated by the dozens in weeks. But going back to the story, Oliver's trying to catch up and Mark is just getting the living hell beat out of him. And there's that point where he asks Conquest to stop. Conquest is like, "Are you crazy?" Which is another moment from the comic. I love the fact that so many of these moments are just pulled straight from the comics. I imagine that Jeffrey Dean Morgan and so many of the other actors were reading this and it was just like, oh, like I get it. I get it. Like there's not much difference. You read the comic, you do your research, you talk to Rob, and then you record. Um, of course, Oliver comes in and kind of he puts a couple licks into Conquest, but Conquest just gets to slapping him around. Mark tries to have a conversation, and then when Oliver interrupts again, Mark, I think Conquest just sheer power, just the way that moment where Oliver interrupts and Conquest just backhands Mark out of the way and just says like take a break. That power difference is just ridiculous. Like, of course, Nolan slash Omni-Man had great power, but a lot of his blows outside of the punch where he punched him into Chicago, a lot of his blows were him carrying him. But Conquest was just like literally punching the living shit out of Mark. And when he grabs Kid Omni Man, Oliver, and begins to stretch him out, pause, but literally stretch like he says he's gonna rip him in two and grab his heart, and then Mark comes and saves him. But like again, seen straight from the book, nothing added there. Even the dialogue is almost the exact same. I have the comic pulled up on my iPad here, and it's incredible. I think it's incredible. There's a couple scenes that I want to mention that weren't in the show, but there's a moment where when they're flying over, I don't know, I don't think that's an ocean, and if it is, like good God, but there's the scene where uh they're in the ocean and Conquest is slamming Mark's head into the water. That doesn't that leads to something else. They don't end up on that beach. They end up Mark ends up excuse me, Conquest pushes Mark's head through a battleship, and then they end up like in the middle of what seems like nowhere. Like they're in the remains of a city, or outside of a city, and then Eve shows up. They have a little bit of a fight there, but the Eve thing in particular does not go like that. Yes, she argues with Cecil, and you have Cecil pleading and trying to figure out like how he can help. And the reality is he can't help because he has no more reanimin. There are no of the re-invincible animin. Like there's no anything that can help with this. So if Mark loses, it's the end of the world. And he sends out Eve out there, and in the comics, he mops Eve up in literally 2 pages. Like I'm looking at it right now. She shows up, gets one lick in, and then he just deals with her. It doesn't go exactly like this, and I do like that it showcases her power a little bit. But again, once Conquest starts getting the hang of things, kills her right away, and that flips the switch in Mark a little bit, where Mark, I think he's very emotion driven. And there's also the power level thing. He hasn't lived that long. He hasn't had his powers that long. And Conquest is thousands of years old. So there is a huge power level difference. And the biggest thing with Mark is since he's emotion driven, a lot of his power is rooted in that. The angrier he gets, the more he loves someone, the more likely he is to fight back. Now, granted, he never was going to have nothing for Omni-Man, his dad, when they were fighting. But in this moment, as you watch the entire season and he's building this relationship with Eve, it's very clear she is the most important person in his life. She has brought him balance. She's brought him peace. She's somebody that he confides in. And so when she dies right in front of him, he feels, regret and guilt and grief all in just one. And at this point, he's, you see, which is, I thought the animation was really, really good this episode. So if they were saving some budget for these last two, I'm shit. They first of all, Amazon give them some more money, bring some more animators in, and or I'm not happy with it. Like I assume excuse me, I am happy with it. I assume that we will get continued 8 episode season. So if we have a couple episodes where they take shortcuts and this is the result, we get battles like this, so be it. Um, you have Conquest who's talking shit again, and then you have this monologue, which is one of my favorite monologues throughout the entire show, where he's basically thanking Mark. And oh my goodness, Rob Kirkman is incredible. The entire show, the entire episode. I love Rob Kirkman just because he has so much charisma and he embodies every character he plays. But you have this monologue where he's basically thanking Mark and saying, like, thank God, like this has been so much fun. I appreciate you. I really get to cut loose. And he's basically saying this because he's about to kill him. And you have that scene where Mark says, "You don't live to see tomorrow," and his eye is twitching. That the streams are, his tears are streaming down his face. Just a really, really deep and impactful scene. It's something that we haven't seen from Mark. But I think the funny thing about this is all of my friends who have watched Invincible are texting me like, "Yo, does Mark win any fight?" I had one of my boys, Tashawn, text me, and he was like, he sent me the Ray Allen and the Spurs three that saved the Miami Heat a decade ago, which is true. Like Eve does in some ways save him right away. Like you have the punch that happens and it breaks off his bionic arm. It breaks Mark's forearm, and then they get to squabbling again. And you see that Mark got a lot of heart. He got a lot of heart, but does he have the power? And it's not looking like that until Eve goes atomic and she blasts Conquest, torches him, and that turns the tide on things. Like Mark immediately gets on top of Conquest. Conquest breaks his other hand, and then Mark just headsbutts him to death, or so we think. And I think, oh, let me go back one second. That moment where Conquest is talking to Invincible and he's saying, like, I'm lonely, nobody rocks with me. I don't even have a real name. Moments that weren't in the book, but were fabulous because you don't really get insight into villains a lot. Like you got that with Angstrom Levy, you get that with of course Omni-Man in season 1, and not really the Sequids. But all that being said, and you get that with like some of these minor villains that come up, Powerplex, for example. But someone of this stature in the comics, Conquest shows up and they immediately get to scrap it. And of course, like you have Anissa saying the next person they send is going to be a lot worse than I am, but you don't really get to see his backstory all that much in the book. And I think these little moments, these 15 to 30-second moments where he says a little bit more than he does in the books, are so authentic to character that we might as well just add it in there. And just beautiful scenes. And then the fight's over. We presume that that Conquest is dead, and you have Mark in the hospital. They begin to have conversations and some things that I think we don't necessarily need to go over as much. Those scenes are directly straight out of the book again, where Mark is talking to his mom in the book, and Eve and so many other people. Then you go to Rex's funeral and Rex Blow's funeral, and I think that that funeral is important because he is one of the, I'd say, heartbeats of the show in the first three seasons. He turned from asshole to he's trying to be a nice guy, and by the end of this season, by the end of last episode, you sort of feel for him. Like at first, like, look at this prick, and I think I coined the term from prick to polished, and he's just trying to be better, and he dies being what we know to be the best version of himself. And you see Eve grieving, and Rudy, whose robot, changed his name. And I want you to keep in mind that like Rudy has done some weird things because he's changing his name in honor of Rex. But at the same time, he also stole his identity. Like he literally stole his identity by pointing him or pricking him with the needle, and then just becoming essentially his twin in a sense, all because Monster Girl found him somewhat attractive, even though he was an asshole. Weird things to do. However, everybody keeps it pushing, and it may be something that the show revisits at some point. But again, you have another monologue from Eve, who used to date him, and she's grieving and saying all these different things about how she wishes she appreciated him more and spent more time with him. And Mark is just kind of like happy that she's alive. And I think that's real. Like when you just saw someone who you love get beat brutally and they essentially save your life, Mark is just reflecting on things. And it's just an interesting way to end the season. And I thought the way that they teased the end of the season was really interesting. Of course, you have the Sequids who are back up, they were up under all that debris. They are construction workers who they now control, and I think that that'll be revisited pretty early on in the season. You have Battle Beast, who has survived. You have Angstrom Levy, who's been repaired. All of these things happen in the comics at different point in times. Like when the Sequids are back, that happens a little earlier, right after the Invincible War ends, and you see one, and these construction workers are like, "What the hell is that?" But Battle Beast has survived, and someone picks him up, and he's now killed a Viltrumite. So Battle Beast is really like that if you didn't know already. And then you see Cecil keeps Conquest alive. He lies to Mark, and you see why Mark doesn't necessarily trust him, because he keeps Conquest alive. He puts him in this bunker, and after everything we've seen, do you really think that that can hold Conquest? We're gonna find out. But he's been tearing through cities. He beat the hell out of Mark. He's beating up everybody. What could a human prison, in a sense, do? That'll be interesting. I think that if I was predicting something, I think that uh, Conquest storyline will pick up towards the end of season 4. I think that that might come in probably episode 8. I would guesstimate the season finale of season 4, because again, as I've said before, I'll get into a little bit of analysis. Um, You have the Damien Darkblood. Let me say, you have the Damien Darkblood things where he mentions that there's someone, a surface dweller, who is very powerful, who hasn't been seen in eons, and trying to think. There's only one Invincible comic that I haven't read, and that's the Invincible Universe compendium. And I actually just got it, so I don't know if that's something that is picked up in that book, but I don't remember that part in the comics. Um, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see where that goes. Going back to analysis, I do think that season 4 is going to be similar to season 2. Invincible has these moments in the comics that I think r- they reach heights so high and then you have to level set. And I don't think that necessarily means it's going to take a step back, but I think people who will eventually watch season 4 will feel the same way about season 4 that they felt about season 2. And it's because season 3 and season 1 are so epic. I do think season 3 is the best season yet, from Mark and Cecil's relationship deteriorating to it slowly being built up a little bit now and built up and Cecil betrays him again. But I think that it's the emotional journey that Mark went on in this season based on how it built on season 2 was important because you see Mark who doesn't want to kill, and then he's accidentally kills Angstrom Levy, and then you go through the next season and he's being forced to uh kill or accidentally killed throughout the season. So he kills King Immortal, and then you have the moment with Powerplex where Powerplex is grieving his niece and his sister, I believe, and he's telling and you have all these moments where Powerplex supercharges and kills his wife and child, like all these moments where this is very, very clearly Mark dealing with death. He can try to prevent it or he can be the cause of it. And right now, like beforehand, the pendulum was on, I'm going to try to prevent it. Now the pendulum is swung to, I'm the cause of it. And you see that slowly over the season. And what does he say at the end of this? Anybody who touches my family, I'm going to kill him. And that's an ongoing theme that we're going to see play out over the next season. I will say that Rob Kirkman has said that this show, he would hope this show goes between 7 and 8 seasons. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, 7 seasons is not enough to complete this show unless they do movies. And even then, like these are 45-minute episodes. I think they're condensing them very well, but 7 seasons isn't enough. I don't even think 8 seasons is enough. I think 9 seasons is probably the right number. Will people get tired of it? Don't know. Don't know. But 7 seasons is not enough. I think 8 would be pushing it. You need more specials in between then. And I don't know if Amazon is going to be willing to cough up all that money because it's very clear, like Rob Kirkman and the creators of Invincible and Amazon pay a lot of money to these voice actors, and there's a lot of scheduling and animating and all that. It's just a lot of details that I think are that have to be figured out on the business end of things for this show to start and end the way that it should. To me, 9 seasons is the number. I think they can do it in 8, but 9 will complete things, especially with what happens. Like, there's so much. If I had to put a guesstimate as far as where they are on a percentage of 1 to 100, as far as where they are, it's like at 37, like literally 37% of the way through through the Invincible comics. So, with that being said, there's a lot more to go. 7 seasons would mean you're around 45. Not exactly accurate. Um, but going back to some of these storylines, you're going to see different characters develop. You're going to see Robot develop and deal with different things. I think there's a lot of really interesting storylines that I'm not going to spoil, but uh I'm scrolling through the comic right now. But of course, one of the things that has to pick up is the storyline with Alan the Alien and Omni-Man. They're out in space. They've now escaped from the Viltrumite prison. What are they up to? And what are they doing? And that will 100% pick up in season 4. There's no way that they would hold that. How it picks up and who you meet along the way are going to be really interesting. I think that there's going to be some more villains who come along and you'll see Eve deal with something that she's never dealt with before. Um, you'll see Mark deal with different things that he's never dealt with before. All of I'm skimming through the comic now. All of this is going to be happening, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it. I think that this season, if this show ended in March, I would guesstimate that the new season of Invincible comes out in April or May. That would be my guess. I think Rob Kirkman has said that they've been working, but it's hard for me to imagine that they get something out again in February. Just hard for me to see it. Maybe they've been putting in overdrive and they're able to, but I foresee a quarter 2 release for Invincible season 4, and we have a lot to look forward to. This again is the springboard for Invincible to go to the next level. I think they accomplished that goal. I think that season 4 is going to be another really, really good season that's going to be a building block, and at that point, you get just bangers of seasons. I would give this season on a scale of an F to an A plus. I would give it an A plus. I would give season 1 an A plus. I would give season 2 probably a B plus or B around that. I would predict that season 4 would be an A minus. But that's all I got for you all today. What did you think of the Invincible season 3 finale? What did you enjoy? What did you not like? I'd just love to have conversations in the comments about what your thoughts were and what you're looking forward to. But that's all I got for you all today. And I appreciate every like, comment, and subscription. You all be easy. And this is The World with Randall Williams. See you all next time.